My name's Steve. I wrote the film Dave Made a Maze. It's about a guy who builds a cardboard fort in his living room and gets trapped inside it, and his girlfriend has to lead a team of people inside to rescue him. And once inside, it's a whole new mystical land with dangerous traps and creatures.
Can you tell us how you came up with the idea for the movie?
I think it came out of a lot of different places. I think mainly it came out of this idea of trying to make something that I could build with my friends and people that I knew. And as it grew, it sort of became a much bigger project. But it was really wanting to make something and sort of create something, and then talking with the director, Bill, and he had a forts story of his own. And everyone seemed to have a story about forts from their childhood that really helped them sort of relate to the story. And from there, like, everyone sort of had a piece of it as it grew. So that was really cool.
For John, how did you get involved with the project?
Our director, Bill Watterson, is an old friend of mine. I've known him for 30 years. We were in a crappy cover band together in high school. And he was more well acquainted with Steve at the time. This is going back about 7 years now. And Steve had pitched Bill on an idea of a guy getting lost in the cardboard fort he builds in his living room. And Bill asked me if I'd be interested in producing it. And as soon as I heard the pitch, the one-sentence pitch, I was on board. 6 months later, they put the first draft in front of me, and that was 6 years ago. So here we are.
Did you find it easier than previous films, or like more complex?
This is hands down the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life. I'm not exaggerating or being flippant. This movie was the hardest thing I've ever done in my entire life, producing this. We've been working on it for 6 years. Neither one of us has been paid $1 yet. At various points, it was a full-time job and beyond a full-time job. Both through pre-production and production, and then during various segments of post, even raising the money. There's so many moving parts to this film. It's got stop-motion animation, it's got 2D cell animation, it's got in-camera special effects, it's got an entire world made out of cardboard. We employed or brought on board more than 200 people. It was a beast. Yeah, no, this is the hardest film I've ever worked on. Most ambitious.
Yeah, I think it's worth noting, though, that for it being the hardest thing, I think you've done a better job than I would have expected for anything of this magnitude, because you were really sort of at the head of that sort of coordination also for that many moving parts.
I appreciate that. Thank you. But it doesn't change the fact that it just never stopped being a challenge. I mean, there are a lot of things about filmmaking that are challenging, but once you've done more of a sort of normal environment with a normal cast and crew and location, you sort of get a vibe for how that's supposed to go. And this one was just so different in so many ways, and it presented a lot of new challenges.
I thought it was a pretty rad process. I mean, hard or easy. This is the farthest and the most I've ever done in terms of helping make a movie. I've been in, I had a bit part in Human Centipede 3, and I spent all day on my hands and knees and in the dirt with my face in someone's ass and someone's face in my ass. Best catering I've ever been on, but that was also like the easiest, that was the best set, that was the easiest set I'd ever been on. And this, like, Dave Made a Maze was, the hardest part about it for me was being so invested in it. Like, this is the most work that I had created and worked on with other people, and they're people I cared about were making it happen, and they were helping me make it happen, and we were part of this team. I think that's what, to me, the hardest part was. Not only was it a incredibly complex undertaking, but it was with people you care about and your friends, and so it's not, if there's some sort of misstep, you're watching your friend go through a meat grinder, for whatever 72-hour period until that fire's put out. So for me, I think it was really hard on a personal level, but on a professional level, I didn't really know what was going on. I wrote the script, I joined art department, and I would just build stuff. And so I would hear bad news from John, but every time I was like, well, John's taking care of this, and I trust him in that sense. And same with Bill, the director. Like, there's a problem, he's like, but he's taking care of it. Each person's role, I think everybody picked up and did the work, whatever they had to in whatever sort of crisis. So for me, compared to other projects, this was I would say, the hardest because there was the most writing on it.
Was there any parts of the story that was like left out for the film?
I think there was a few jokes that we cut out that that were kind of offensive, and then also there was multiple deaths that we cut out.
The only real major cuts happened well before we went into production, and they were primarily just a time and money consideration. We had multiple additional characters who got 30 seconds of screen time apiece.
Then also elaborate deaths.
But very elaborate deaths within those 30 seconds or 60 seconds or whatever they were going to be on screen for, and each of them required,
days,
many days of building and
thousands of
a day of shooting and lots of money we didn't have. So that was kind of an early determination in pre-production that we weren't going to shoot those things. But in terms of like what we set out to shoot, there's virtually nothing that was left on the cutting room floor. I mean, it had to be a pretty efficient use of our time, otherwise we weren't going to finish the movie. And I think Bill and Steve got virtually everything they wanted out of the script.
Yeah, I think we wrote for efficiency also as best we could. Like, is this possible? Can we do this? Yes, we can. Or we don't know, let's go for it. I think that was the main thing. And John was like, well, we'll figure it out. Cut this, cut that.
Like I said, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know. Like, I know the concept, but I don't know how like it ends or anything. Or does it leave open for a sequel? Is that type of movie? Is it that type of movie?
You always look at me. I feel like you probably.
Because most of the questions should be answered by you.
Oh, I like in a creative sense. Yes, we have an 8-movie arc that we'd really like to complete, but in a commercial sense, it really depends on how the movie does.
Yeah, we're 3 weeks away from a national release a limited national release. We're going to be in 16 cities around the U.S. and Canada on August 18th. And yeah, if it goes gangbusters and it keeps expanding and there's demand out there for it, then I think the three of us will probably sit down and start scratching our heads and figuring out what the two of them can come up with.
I think you meant to say scratching each other's heads.
Yes, well.
Yeah.
Because you never know. Because like I said, I'm really excited to see it. But just from the trailer, I could already see, like I could already smell like cult following. Like I could already smell something, from the trailer, because it's got that nuance, that kind of feel that would have a nice cult following.
Well, I mean, they made 2 sequels to Scanner's Cop, so.
Yeah, you never know.
Yeah.
They made 2 Transformers sequels, so you never know.
Yeah.
So, I'm just saying, like.
If there's a single thing that kept me going through this movie over 6 years, it's the fact that it is unlike anything I've ever seen. And even at a script stage, it was unlike anything I'd really ever read. And that is worth a lot when you're pulling your hair out trying to raise money, and you're pulling your hair out trying to figure out how you can afford, a location for your crew for 2 solid months and all of that. So I feel like that's a question you didn't even actually ask, so I don't know.
No, I thought you were. I was waiting for this sweet climax because you were you were headed towards something that seemed really poignant.
No, I just that it was an easy movie to keep driving forward on because of how special and unusual and weird it felt in the first place. That's pretty much all I wanted to say.
Ah, that's great. I like hearing that. I like when the movie's showing at different places. I like stepping into the theater and watching stuff because I'm reminded of the hard work we did that day to put that stuff up, but then also the ease that people seem to have to enjoy it. Like it's not a hard movie to like, I think.
It's got this guy in it for starters. I mean, how can you not?
Yeah. My favorite part about this is this sort of chronic sort of like look that's conveyed in the eye. All the emotions, the window of the soul. But